June 9th, in the morning we made land from southwest to northwest by west, distant about 8 leagues, which we took to be the island of Zalea, south latitude 5.45, longitude west from London 240.21. We likewise saw a sail to windward of us, and taking it to be a Dutch vessel, we hauled near the wind till 8 o'clock. Then the Duchess and we made sail at once to speak with her, but the wind abating soon after, and she making the best of her way from us, we manned our pinnace and sent it after her. We made 3 islands to the northward of Zalea, and the looming of other land to the westward of all, which we took to be the southernmost part of Celebes. June 10th, our pinnace came up with this small vessel, who told them they were bound for Macassar, a Dutch factory on the south part of the Celebes. The pinnace took the master of her board, being a Malayan, who promised to pilot us not only through the Straits of Zalea, but to Batavia, if we would keep it secret, for fear of the Dutch. He sent his vessel to lie in the narrow passage between the islands, till such time as our ships came up. About 4 o'clock we entered the strait, and came betwixt the islands that are next to Zalea, and another little one to the northward of that, being the middlemost of the 3, where we found a good passage, 3 leagues over, all deep water, steering from northwest by west, to give the larboard island a good berth. Then we made the southernmost part of Celebes. June 11th, the pilot promised to carry us through the channel. The great Dutch ship generally went for Batavia, and by that means avoid the shoals called the Brill and Bunker ground. The Brill has very uneven soundings, and in many places but 3 fathom water and less, so we hauled away to the northward, keeping the island Celebes aboard, the southwest part of which trends away in low land, with high mountains at the back of it. And off the point there lies a rock pretty high and remarkable. At 4 o'clock we came into soundings, and had 10 fathom first cast. The rock of southwest point bore then north, distant about 6 leagues, and we had an island ahead of us, from northwest by west to north-northwest, being low and level, about 3 leagues long, and near the same distance from the main as we entered betwixt them. It grew narrower. We steamed with the north part of the island till we came within a league and half of it, then steered north a little to weather a spit of sand lying off the island, by which means we opened 3 small keys. After we were clear of the shore, we hauled up northwest about 7, and came to an anchor under the island, behind the spit of sand, in 10 fathom water, very good clean ground. The rock of Celebes then bore northeast by north 4 leagues, the northernmost of keys west 2 leagues, and the middlemost west-southwest 3 leagues, the other being shut in with the long island. We kept the lead going all the way constantly through, and had never less than 6 fathom, nor more than 10. As soon as it was day we weighed, and went betwixt the 2 small keys, keeping nearest the northernmost, sounding all the way, and had no more than 10 fathom. The water still deepening, being clear of them, we hauled away west, then southwest, having a fresh gale of wind at southeast and southeast by east, no land in sight at noon, but part of the high land of Celebes, which bore east, distant about 12 leagues. It is well for us that we meet with this pilot, for having no good charts, nor anyone acquainted with those seas, we had run greater hazard. June 13, we made land a second time, which bore southwest by west, distant 6 leagues. June 14, we ran by the island of Madura, which is about 40 leagues long, lying east and west, on the north side of Java. The land we made in the morning, being the northeast part of it, which, agreeing with the pilot knowledge, made us the more certain. June 15, in the morning we fell in with the coast of Java, near the highland of Japara, which bore west by south, distant about 5 leagues. We had soundings betwixt 10 and 20 fathom, good easy ground, and saw abundance of fishing boats, but all kept at a distance. We got our guns out of the hold and scaled them, in order to be in a readiness against we come to Batavia, where in all probability we shall get 2 or 3 days more, it being not above 9 leagues from this place. By noon we brought the land of Japara to bear south by east, distant 4 leagues, having opened a large deep bay with other high land further to the westward, which bore west-northwest, distant 9 leagues, latitude 6.19 south, longitude 248.47 west from London. June 16, we made a small high hummocks to the westward of high land we set yesterday noon, which at 6 o'clock bore west by south, distant 5 leagues. We hauled off west by west and west-northwest, and in the morning made the island of Caravan Java, Crimon Java, which bore northeast by north, distant 3 leagues, and also a ragged island to the eastward of it, bearing east-northeast 5 leagues, and 5 small keys to the westward, which are all called Caraman Java, Crimon Java. We had soundings most part of these 24 hours, betwixt 20 and 30 fathom OZ ground, latitude 6.7 south, longitude 250.14 west from London. June 17, we made the high land of Cherrybone, which bore southwest. In the morning we saw a great ship right ahead, and being very eager to hear news, I sent our pinnace aboard to know what she was. She proved a Dutch ship about 600 tons and 50 guns belonging to Batavia, and was plying to some of the Dutch factories for timber. They told us of Prince George's death, which we heard in the South Sea, but gave no credit to it then; that the wars continued in Europe, and that we had a good success in Flanders, and but little elsewhere. They likewise told us that it was about 30 Dutch leagues from hence to Batavia, but no danger. We borrowed a large draft, which are very useful to us, and left them at anchor. Towards noon we made the land, being very low, but had gradual soundings, by which we were satisfied in the night how to sail by the sand. June 20th, in the afternoon we saw the ships in the road of Batavia, betwixt 30 and 40 sail, great and small, and got happily to anchor just after sunset, betwixt 6 and 7 fathom water, at the long-desired port of Batavia, latitude 6.10 south, longitude 252.51 west from London. By our reckoning here, we altered our count of time, having, as customary, lost almost 1 day in running west so far round the globe. June 22nd, we waited on His Excellency, the Governor-General, whom we acquainted with the necessity we lay under to refit our ships. He was pleased to see and approve our commissions as private men of war, and promised he would meet the council, and soon resolve us how far he could afford such assistance as we desired. June 30, I am still very weak and thin, but I hope to get time and leisure to recover my health. During these 10 days I was not able to go much on board, and whenever I went, found that till then I was a stranger to the humours of our ship's company. Some of them were hugging each other, others blessing themselves that they were come to such a glorious place for punch, where they could have arrack for 8 pence per gallon, and sugar for 1 penny a pound. Others quarrelled who should make the next ball, for now the labour was worth more than the liquor, whereas a few weeks past a bowl of punch to them was worth half the voyage. 8 days ago the doctor cut a large musket shot out of my mouth, which had been there near 6 months, ever since I was first wounded. We reckoned it a piece of my jawbone, the upper and lower jaw being much broken, and almost close together, so that the doctor had much ado to come at the shot to get it out. I had also several pieces of my foot and heel bone taken out, but God be thanked, am now in a fair way to have the use of my foot, and to recover my health. The hole the shot made in my face is now scarce discernible. I proposed the calling of committee to regulate our affairs, wherein we agreed as follows. At a committee held on board the Bachelor Frigate June 30, 1710, in the road of Batavia, it is agreed to pack and repack all goods that appear damaged, and to let other bales that are not, nor have not been apparently damaged, to be only new covered with wax cloth or tarpaulins, if necessary, in every ship, and that Mr. Vanbrugh and Mr. Goodall be at every place, and the rest of the agent be accountable to them, and they to leave a duplicate of the whole with the other two, and be always ready to give an account to a general committee. Secondly, that Captain Courtney do provide the ships with all manner of necessaries, as fast and wanting, and as soon as Captain Rogers is in health, that he assist in it, that every one give a list to them of what they want from time to time. That Mr. Charles Pope do continue ashore, and send off provisions for all the ships, and keep a book of the whole. Let every ship take their daily turn to divide the meat, and send it off as early as possible in a country boat, and as near as he can, no more, no less than 350 pounds weight, every other day, or as often as he can conveniently. Let him send off greens, carrots, eggs, and any other small refreshment, more than the common allowance, to be equally divided with the meat. Thirdly, that a suitable quantity of rack and sugar be sent aboard each ship to give a quarter-mess to the ship's companies, but whilst on the crane, the allowance may be enlarged as the commanding officers think convenient. Fourthly, if anything not included is necessary to the dispatch and outset of our ships, considering the trouble and loss of time to meet in a whole committee, we, to prevent dilatory proceedings, unanimously leave such things to Captain Thomas Dover, Captain Woods Rogers, Captain Stephen Courtney, and Captain Edward Cook, who are to agree on a time and place to meet, and have the same power in this affair as a whole committee. That if anything requires such dispatch, that the four cannot be present at a time, then any three of them together, agreeing and signing what they have done for the satisfaction of the rest, shall be sufficient, but otherwise we desire them to act in conjunction. Fifthly, we agreed to continue Mr. Carlton Vanbrugh, agent of the Duke, Mr. James Goodall, agent of the Duchess, to make Mr. John Viger, agent of the Bachelor, and Mr. Joseph Parker, agent of the Marquis, to keep a strict account of what they can in each ship, and to preserve and take care of the general interest to the utmost of their power. Sixthly, we likewise agreed to divide the plunder on board the Bachelor, and in order thereto we appoint Captain William Dampier and Mr. Thomas Glendale to be judges what ought to be divided as plunder, who are to govern themselves as near as possible by our resolution in a committee of the 9th of July, 1709. And in order to dispatch matters quietly without loss of time, we appoint Mr. John Barlett, Mr. Lancelot Appleby, Mr. Alexander Selkirk, and Mr. Joseph Smith, to act for the officers in apprising and dividing the said plunder, and we allow the sailors to agree on a man from each ship, who is to act in conjunction with them, and in the whole to promote the general good with the utmost sincerity and dispatch. We also appoint Mr. Carlton Vanbrugh and Mr. James Goodall to be in the place when the plunder is opened or divided, and to receive what belongs to the cargo. Seventhly, it is further resolved for our general safety that all trading be prohibited by any of us with the inhabitants of this city of Batavia, or this island of Java, or any part of India, and to the end that no person may plead ignorance, a protest shall be drawn up and published at the mast of each ship, prohibiting the aforesaid commerce, and protesting against all damages arising through the same, and the person found guilty of it. Eighthly, it is also agreed that a reward of 100 rix dollars shall be given to the pilot we made use of from the Strait of Zelaya to this port. Ninthly, it is further agreed that the Marquis shall go first upon the crane, and then to be next followed by the Duke, the Duchess to be the last. 10thly, we have considered the charge and method of our outset, and do agree, in order to promote dispatch, that 10,000 pieces of aid be delivered to Captains Dover, Rogers, Courtney, and Cook, tomorrow being the 1st of July, 1710. Signed by the majority of our council. The committee did likewise resolve on supply of the money to the officers as follows. At a committee held in Batavia Road, July 1st, 1710, we have resolved to supply these officers of the Duke, Duchess, Marquis, and Bachelor with the following sums to provide themselves with necessaries in our long passage to Europe. Pieces of 8. To Captain Thomas Dover, 2,000. Captain Rogers and Captain Courtney for their present expenses, 400. Captain Cook, 800. Mr. Fry and Mr. Stratton, 1,000. Captain Dampier, 200. Mr. Pope, 350. Mr. Glendale and Mr. Connolly, 700. Mr. Vanbrugh, 250. Mr. Thomas Bridge and Mr. Milborne, 100. Mr. Norman and Mr. Selkirk, 80. To the 3 doctors of the Duke, Duchess, and Marquis, 90. To the doctor of the Bachelor, 20. To Mr. Goodall and Mr. Appleby, 80. Total, 6,070. All these sums we ordered Mr. Vanbrugh and Mr. Goodall to discharge out of the money on board the Duke or Duchess, as either commanders shall think convenient, whenever the above-mentioned officers shall demand it, and the receipt to Mr. Vanbrugh and Mr. Goodall, so far as is here ordered, shall be sufficient. Witness our hand, July 1st, 1710. Signed by the majority of our council. July 2nd, from the 22nd of the last month, we lay leaky and in a very ordinary condition, not knowing when and how the General would please to order us assistance, according to our present necessities, which were then laid open to him, and this day, to shew that we should sufficiently vindicate and justify all our proceedings like honest men, we gave in an abstract of our voyage from the day we set sail out of King Road to the day we arrived in Batavia, which they desired to see before they would assist us, so we gave it them as short as possible. July 7th. Today our men finished appraising and dividing the plunder clothes in the Bachelor, which being tolerable good, amounts to about 400 pounds sterling. July 8th. This day, after a great many dilatory answers, we were at last permitted to make preparations for careening at Horn Island, which is about 2 or 3 leagues to the northward of the road, but were by no means suffered to go to the island unrest, where all the Dutch ships are cleaned, being only allowed 8 or 10 Malayan caulkers and small vessels to put our goods in. The Marquis began to careen about her, but the carpenters having viewed her betwixt wind and water, finding her very bad, and that she had but a single bottom, it to a honeycomb by the worms, they judged her altogether unfit to go to Europe, whereupon I desired the committee to meet and agree to dispose of her as follows. It is agreed that, having now discharged the Marquis of her cargo brought from the South Sea, and finding great part thereof perished through the weakness of the ship, and damage of the worms which had eaten through her bends, and good parts of her bottom like a perfect honeycomb, we have considered our present condition, with the great charge and loss of time to repair her here, and judging our 3 ships sufficient and capable to carry the remaining parts of her cargo, we, according to the best of our judgment and information from a view made by the carpenters, do believe it for our safety and benefit for the concerned, to sail the said ship the Marquis here, as soon as possible, for the most she will yield. And we do appoint Captain Wood Rogers, Captain Stephen Courtney, Captain Edward Cook, and Captain Thomas Dover, to treat of and conclude the sale, letting the purchaser have sufficient power, as far as we are capable, to condemn her. Signed by the officers of the committee. July 20th. The Marquis being condemned to sail, we had the caulkers aboard us to make all manner of dispatch for careening. Our ship being very leaky, we thought it high time to wait on the governor with the following representation, which we got put into Dutch, but could not get the Sabanda to introduce us, as the custom is here. Therefore we went ourselves, and gave present to the Dutch guards to let us in to see the general. After an hour's waiting, we were admitted, and delivered him a copy of our commissions, and were promised assistance, but finds it's no more than what he can't have a pretence to deny us. Our memorial was as follows: To His Excellency, the Governor-General and Council of the Dutch East India Company. About 4 weeks ago we arrived here, and waited upon your Excellency, acquainting you with our circumstances, which, according to your order, we delivered the same day in writing to your Sabanda, and have daily waited upon him for your resolution thereupon. He has since visited our several ships, and we question not but all things appear to him agreeable to our representation. We have lain some time ready with leaky ships to go to the place appointed us to careen at, only waiting for a careening vessel to heave down by, which we humbly crave you will be placed to order us. Delays are very prejudicial to our ships that have been long without the benefit of a friend's port, which we earnestly request you will please to consider. We have deferred troubling you in daily hopes of an order for our assistance by the proper officer, till we can no longer account for our loss of time without a direct application. We hope for a continuance of the common benefits and refreshments, and on our part shall persevere to behave ourselves with all due regard and respect to the government and customs of this city. Batavia, July 20th, 1710. Woodes Rogers, Stephen Courtney. The governor immediately ordered us a vessel to careen, and we took our leaves. July 23rd. We went over to Horn Island, having a pilot to direct us, and a sampan ready to heave down by, and take in our guns, carriages, and so on, anchored on the south side of the island in 5 fathom water, about a stone's cast offshore, where we careened. We continued refitting our ships, and repacking our goods, with a great deal of difficulty, till the 13th of September, during which time nothing remarkable happened, but that after I had refitted as well as I could on Horn Island, I returned to the road of Batavia. Many of our men fell ill of fevers and fluxes, occasioned, as I was informed, by their drinking the water upon the island. We buried here John Bridge, our master, as also the gunner of the Duchess, with another of her crew, and one belonging to the Bachelor. The season being so far spent, and the wind blowing fresh on Horn Island, I could not go again thither to careen my ship, though she needed much. Therefore we tried to get an order to careen at Unrest, where the Dutch careens their own, as we might have done ours in a few days, and with little trouble. I wrote from hence on the 21st of August to my owners by the Nathaniel, an English East India ship, bound directly for England, to let them know of our safe arrival here with our effects, and that we hoped to be with them in a very short time. On the 15th we called committee, and came to the following resolution: Batavia, September 15th, 1710. At a committee held then, it is agreed to divide the money received for a quantity of plates sold amongst the several ships' company, being what had been adjudged plunder. Also that we should make out a request, and deliver it the first opportunity to the general, to the following purpose, viz. To gain leave, if possible, to careen the Duke at Unrest, and so on. Also for leave to set up the markets for sale here, and for a supply of 10 hogsheads of Dutch beef and pork, with the permission to buy and carry aboard some rags and sugar for the 3 ships' stores for our company, and so on. It is also agreed to allow the following particulars for the use of the officers in the great cabin of each ship, namely, to each ship as follows: 2 firkins of butter, 2 gallons of sweet oil, 400 casks of bread or rusk, 100 pounds of weight of flour, 400 pounds weight of tamarinds, half a liquor of Spellman's nip or the best sort of arrack, 3 cheeses, the third part of liquor of Cape wine, 3 packets of fine sugar, also $60 of Spanish money to buy small necessaries. Signed, Thomas Dover, President, William Dampier, Woodes Rogers, Charles Pope, Stephen Courtney, William Stratton, Edward Cook, John Connolly. Rummaging today in the powder room, we found a leak 3 or 4 feet underwater, which we did our best to stop. All English ships are allowed by the government here, half a liquor of arrack a man for the ship's use, and it is counted as part of the provisions, but our boats are not suffered to bring the least thing offshore without being first severely searched. This, though we pay more, will likewise hinder all manner of traffic with anyone here. Our chief officers have also prevented it aboard, and narrowly watched our crews, so that I doubt they will want several necessaries that this place affords. This we do to avoid giving the India Company in England any pretence to clamour against us at home on account of our trading here without their permission. We requested the governor to have liberty to sell the marquis by the inventory to the highest bidder at the public sale, but the Sabandar, or chief custom house officer for foreigners, told us it was the governor and council's resolution to publish at the sale, that if any Dutch freemen should purchase the ship, they must either rip her up or burn her. This we thought another great hardship, that we could not get Dutch carpenters at liberty to careen and refit her at unrest, nor get freedom of sale. So we drew up a request and got it put in Dutch, resolving to wait on the general to set forth the hardship we are under, and likewise request to careen the Duke at unrest, where we might have Dutch carpenters, that being the only fit place. Now the weather and wind was changeable, and we could not do it at any other islands. But when Captain Courtney and I came to the castle to wait on the general, the guards told us they had orders that no Englishman should be admitted without the Sabandar, and that they durst carry no paper or message from us to the Governor-General. We waited till past the middle of day, then addressed ourselves to one of the Reds of India, who used to listen to the English when any was imposed on. He treated us very handsomely with our linguist, Mr. Vanbrugh and Mr. Swart, at his house, and said he believed we had not justice done us, but the Sabandar being the general's near relations, he should make enemies if he appeared in our affair, and could advise us no better than to try what we could do again with the Sabandar, who we knew was inflexible. So we were forced to be silent and let this drop, that we might dispatch for the Cape of Good Hope as fast as possible, the best season for our passage being now at hand. July 30th. The plunder money was shared on the 24th instant, which amounted to 26 shillings a share, being what was adjudged as plunder when at the island of Gorgona, to which I refer. October 7th. This week we made all preparation for sailing, having got most of our stores aboard, and discharged the Marquis, which was so leaky that we sold her to Captain John Opie, commander of the Olive Frigate, lately arrived from London, for 575 Dutch dollars, being an extraordinary bargain. We had been offered much more before by another person, but then I could not prevail with the majority of our council to consent to the sale. October 12th. At daybreak this morning, we, our consort and prize, weighed out of the road, taking the first of land breeze. About noon came to again, in 11 fathom water, about a mile to the northward of Horn Island. We had several English gentlemen aboard our ships, who favoured us with the company out of the road, there being several that arrived during our stay here. English ships that arrived and sailed hence during our stay. Frederick, Captain Priff, arrived July 23rd, sailed July 29th from Bencoolen, bound to Ditto. Rochester, Captain Staines, arrived July 6th, sailed the 21st from England bound to China. Nathaniel, Captain Niggers, arrived July 27th, sailed August 27th from Bengali bound to England. Stranger, Captain Pike, arrived August 30 from England bound to China. We left her there, she having lost her passage to China. Oli, Captain Opie, arrived September 9th from England, left there behind us. Here follows a description of Batavia. Although this place is well known and has been so frequently described, yet being such a noble settlement and proof of the industry of the Dutch in these parts, I can't omit giving the following account of it. The town lies on the northwest side of the island of Java, latitude 5.50 south. The time we were here it was not very healthy. The east and west winds blow all the year along the shore, besides the ordinary land and sea winds, which qualifies the air and makes it pleasant. Otherwise it would be excessive hot. Their summer begins in May, with continual breezes from the east, and a very clear sky till the latter end of October or beginning of November, when the winter begins with hard rains, which hold sometimes 3 or 4 days without intermission. In December the west wind blows very violently, so that then there's a little trade on the coast of Java. In February it is changeable weather with sudden thunderstorms. In March they begin to sow. June is their pleasantest month. In September they gather in their sugar and rice, and in October they have plenty of fruits and flowers, plants and herbs of most sorts. There is a large fenny plain country before the city, but is well improved by the Dutch, and to the eastward it is very full of woods and morasses. The city is foursquare with a river running through it, and fortified by a stone wall and 22 bastions. About 10 years past there was an earthquake which broke down part of the mountains in the country, and altered the course of the river, so that the canals in and about Batavia are not near so commodious as they have been, nor the entrance into the river so deep, and for want of strong current of water to keep it open, they are forced to employ a large engine worked with the horses, to preserve the entrance of the river navigable for small vessels to come into the canals of the city. It lies on a bay in and about which there are 17 or 18 islands, which so break off the sea, that though the road is very large, yet it is safe. The banks of the canals through the city are faced with stones on both sides, as far as the boom, which is shut up every night at 9 o'clock, and guarded by soldiers. There's channels cut out of the main river for smaller vessels, and everyone that passes the boom pays custom. All the streets run in a straight line, most of them being above 30 feet broad, on each side clear of the canals, and paved next to the houses with bricks. All the streets are very well built and inhabited, 15 of which have canals, and they reckon 56 bridges on them, most of them made of stone. The country seats and buildings around the city are generally neat and well contrived, with handsome gardens for flowers and fruits, and adorned with springs, fountains, statues, and so on. The vast quantity of coconut trees everywhere afford delightful and profitable groves. They have fine structure here, particularly the cross church, built of stone, and the inside very neat. There are 2 other churches for Dutch, and 2 for Portuguese Protestants, who are a mixed breed of people. There is 1 church also for the Protestant Malayans. The town house is built of brick, in a square about center of the city. It is 2 lofty stories high, and very finely built, where all courts of advice are held, and all matters relating the civil government of the city are determined, and the senators and directors of military affairs meet. There is an inner court enclosed with a high wall, and a double row of stone pillars, where the officers of justice live. Here are hospitals, spin houses, and rest houses, the same as in Amsterdam, with all other public buildings equal to most cities in Europe. The Chinese have also a large hospital in this city for their aged and sick persons, and manage their charity so well that you never see a Chinese look despicable in the street. The Dutch women have great privileges in India than in Holland or anywhere else, for on slight occasions they are often divorced from their husbands and share the estate betwixt them. A lawyer told me at Batavia he has known out of 58 causes, all depending in the council chamber, 52 of them were divorces. Great numbers of the natives who are criminals and not executed after condemnation are chained by pairs and kept at hard labor under guard, perpetually clearing the canals and moats round the city, or any other labor for the public. 3 leagues west from the town is the island Unrest, where all the company's ships are refitted. There are great magazines of naval stores, defended by platforms of guns, and the castle at Batavia is quadrangular, lies in a level, and has 4 bastions and courtins, faced with white stones, and provided with watch-houses. In this castle, or rather citadel, the Dutch Governor-General and most of the members of the Council of India, with other officers of Batavia, have their residence. The governor's palace is of brick, large and well built. In this palace is the council chamber, the secretary's office, and chamber of accounts. The great hall is hung with bright armor, ensigns, flags, and so on, taken by the Dutch here. The governor gives audience to strangers who are introduced to him by the Sabandar, who is chief custom master. Here is also a church within the castle, and armory with apartments for all artificers belonging to the castle, which has 4 gates, and all the avenues well defended, the whole being surrounded with ditches and works well mounted with brass cannon, as are the bastions of the town with blockhouses within the walls, so that they can fire upon the mutineers within, as well as upon an enemy without. The outworks of the town, of which there are several every way at 4 leagues distance, are made of earth, surrounded with ditches and quickset hedges, which render them arbours for beauty, and some of them faced with brick. The garrison on duty is generally about 1,000 strong, and all the outworks are said to be furnished with good stocks of provisions as well as the castle. But the soldiers are kept much under, except the governor's guard, who have large privileges and make a fine appearance. The governor-general lives in as great splendour as a king. He has the train and guards, having a troop of horse, and a company of foot, with a halberd, in liveries of yellow satin, richly adorned with silver laces and fringes, to attend his coach when he goes abroad. The guards are as well equipped as most princes in Europe. His lady has also her guards and train. He is chosen but for 3 years out of the 24 councillors called Rats of India, 12 of whom must always reside in the city. The Chinese have the greatest trade here, farm most of the excise and customs, live according to their own laws and idolatrous worship, and have a chief that manages their affairs within the company, who allow them great privileges, and particularly a representative in council, who has a vote when any Chinese is tried for life. But these privileges are allowed only to such Chinese as inhabit here, for others are not admitted to stay above 6 months in the town, or on the island Java. The other strangers who inhabit here, besides Europeans, are Malayans, with some people from most part of India. The Javanese or ancient natives are numerous, and said to be barbarous and proud, of a dark colour, with flat faces, thin short black hair, large eyebrows and cheeks. The men are strong-limbed, but the women small. The former have a wrapper of calico, 3 or 4 times round their bodies, and the latter from their armpits to their knees. The men have 2 or 3 wives beside concubines, and the Dutch say they are much addicted to lying and stealing. Those on the coast are generally Mahometans, but the others pagans. The women are not tawny as the men, and many of them handsome, but in general amorous and unfaithful to their husband or others, being very apt to give poison, which they do very cunningly. It would be too tedious for me to describe all the remarkable things I saw at Batavia. In short, I was perfectly surprised when I came hither to see such a noble city and Europeans so well settled in the Indies. The town is very populous, but not one-sixth of them Dutch. The Chinese here go all bareheaded, with their hair rolled up, and long gowns, carrying fans in their hands. The Dutch say they are more industrious and acute in trade than themselves. The discipline and order of the Dutch here, both in civil and military affairs, is admirable. They have all necessaries for building and careening ships, as well as in Europe, and their officers as regular as in a Majesty's yard, whereas we have nothing like it in India. They keep the natives very much in awe, being perfectly despotical in their government over them, because they say the natives are naturally so treacherous that they are obliged to punish them severely for small faults. But they are favorable to the Chinese because of the great trade they have by their means, and that they pay great rents for their shops, besides large taxes, and from 16 to 30% for money, which they frequently borrow of the Dutch. I was told there are about 80,000 on the island who pay a Dutch $1 a head each month for liberty to wear their hair, which they are not allowed to do at home since they were conquered by the Tatars. There comes hither from China 14 or 16 large junks yearly, being flat-bottomed vessels from 3 to 500 tons apiece. The merchants come along with their goods, which are lodged in different partitions in the vessel, like warehouses, for which they pay a certain price, and not for the weight or measures of their cargo, as we do, so that they fill them with what they please. They come in with an easterly monsoon, and generally arrive in November or December, and return the beginning of June, so that the Dutch have all Chinese commodities brought to them cheaper than they can fetch them, and being conveniently situated for the spice trade, they have all in their own hands. Batavia wants no commodities that India affords. It is pity our East India Company has no settlement to which the Chinese might resort, which I presume would turn to a much better account than our going China does, where our traders are but indifferently used. It is about 5 years since we quitted Benjar, in the island of Borneo, which, by all accounts I had here, might, if well improved, have been as serviceable to our East India Company as Batavia is to the Dutch, who have seldom less than 20 sail of ships at the Isle of Java, from 30 to 50 and 60 guns each, with men enough for them on all occasions, so that they might easily drive us out of most parts, if not all India, should we ever have an unfortunate war with them. Their soldiers are very well trained, and there is a company always on duty at every gate of the city and citadel, and they have 7 or 8,000 disciplined Europeans in and about the city, who can be ready for action at a very short warning. It is the metropolis of their Indian settlement, and sends governors and officers to all the rest. The late general, before we came hither, had war with the Indians, which I was informed had like to have spoiled their settlement, but at last they divided the natives among themselves, brought them to a peace on advantageous condition, and are now pretty secure of the sea coasts. There are many pleasant seats about the city, and the adjacent country abounds with rice, sugar-cane fields, gardens and orchards, mills for sugar, corn and gunpowder, so that this city is one of the pleasantest in the world. I don't think it's so large as Bristol, but it is more populous. They have schools for Latin, Greek, and so on, and a printing house. They have lately begun to plant coffee here, which thrives very well, so that in a little time they may be able to load a ship or two, but I am told it is not so good as that of Arabia. October 12th, we, according to order from our owners to keep our ships fully manned, if the war continues till our return, shipped here 17 men, most of them Dutch. The Duchess and Bachelor near the same number, so that we are all well manned, and though we looked upon our hardship to be over, Several ran from us here that came out of England with us, being straggling fellows that can't leave their old trade of deserting, though now they have a good sum due to each of them, so that their shares are by contract due to those that continued. October 17th, we got to the watering place on the main, within Prince's Island to Java Head. The chief of our business here was to get water and wood for our passage to the Cape of Good Hope, which we completed in 4 days' time. But in the interim a misfortune befell us, which occasioned our stay longer on account of a boat lent us by Captain Pike, commander of the stranger galley, who followed us hither from Batavia, after a servant of his who was brought away by Captain Dover in the Bachelor. October 23rd, the boat was missing, but came back with all the men safe, and we returned her to Captain Pike, who had his servant, and took his leave of us. We had the following council just before we came to sail. In a committee on board the Duke, October 23rd, 1710, at Java Head. It is agreed that we make the best of our way from hence to the Cape of Good Hope, and if through misfortune any ship should lose or part company, either by bad weather or otherwise, they are to go to the Cape of Good Hope, and if they don't find other ships, to stay there 20 days. But if within that time the missing ship or ships don't appear, then to make their utmost dispatch for the island St. Helena, and if not there, to proceed thence according to the owner's orders for Great Britain. Signed by the majority of our council. October 24th. At 4 in the afternoon, Java Head bore northeast by east, distant 10 or 12 leagues, which being the last sight we had of it, from that we took our departure. October 25th. A fresh gale of wind at southeast with fair weather, but an ugly swelling sea. This morning, in stowing our best anchor, Joseph Long, a sailor fell overboard, and being no swimmer, before we could get the boat out to his assistance, was lost. Nothing remarkable happened till the 27th of December, but that my ship proved so leaky that on the 31st of October she had near 3 foot water in the hold, and our pumps being choked, we were in such danger that we made signals and fired guns for our consort to come to our relief, but had just sucked her as the Duchess came up. The 10th of October she sprung a new leak, which we could not fully stop, though we used all our endeavours, and at the same time I had been for the most part confined to my cabin by illness ever since I left Batavia. The 28th of December, Mr. James Ways, our chief surgeon, died, and we buried him decently next day, without naval ceremonies as usual, being a very honest, useful man, a good surgeon, and bred up at Leyden in the study of physics as well as surgery. We made land the 15th of December, came in with the shore the 18th, and had soundings in 60 and 70 fathom, the ground grey-gret, with small stones and shells, had a strong southerly current. South latitude 34.2, longitude west from London 334.34.